You hear your own voice every single day. It is perhaps the most consistently familiar sound in your entire life. Yet despite hearing it constantly, you have never actually heard it the way the world does. The voice inside your head, the one that feels familiar, steady, and recognizable, is not the same sound that other people experience when you speak. And the moment you hear a recording of yourself, something feels profoundly wrong. It feels almost unsettling, as if the version of you stored in your mind has been quietly replaced with an imposter. That discomfort is not vanity or insecurity, it is neuroscience. It is biology working exactly as it evolved to work. When you speak, your voice reaches your inner ear in two different ways simultaneously. Understanding these two pathways is key to understanding why your recorded voice sounds so strange. The first path is air conduction. Sound travels through the air, entering your ear canal exactly the way it does for everyone else listening to you. This is the traditional path that physics textbooks describe. Sound waves travel through space, hit the outer ear, and proceed inward. When someone else listens to you speak, this is the only path their brain experiences. This air-conducted sound is what microphones capture. This is what recording devices preserve. The second path is bone conduction, and this is where things become fascinating. Vibrations from your vocal cords travel through the bones of your skull directly into your inner ear, bypassing the ear canal entirely. These vibrations travel through the dense structures of your cranium and jawbone. These vibrations are particularly strong at lower frequencies, amplifying the bass components of your voice. This bone conduction adds depth and warmth to your internal experience of your own voice. That fuller, richer tone that you have become accustomed to becomes your internal reference point. It becomes the identity of your voice. It becomes the voice you believe you have. This dual input is unique to hearing your own voice. Nobody else experiences this. When someone else speaks, you receive only air conduction. You never hear the bone-conducted component of their voice because you are not connected to their skull vibrations. But your brain has been receiving both signals from your own voice for your entire life. Your brain has learned to integrate these two signals into a unified perception that becomes deeply familiar. But when you hear a recording, something crucial happens. Bone conduction disappears entirely. The microphone captures only air conduction. It cannot capture the vibrations that travel through your skull because the microphone exists outside your body. It can only record the sound waves that propagate through the air. The deeper frequencies, the ones amplified by bone conduction, are reduced in the recording. What remains sounds thinner, sharper, unfamiliar. Your brain compares this new version to the stored internal model that it has built over decades of experience. The mismatch creates genuine discomfort. It feels wrong not because the recording is inaccurate. In fact, the recording is more accurate to what others actually hear. It feels wrong because it lacks the low-frequency reinforcement that your skull normally provides. Your brain is detecting a real difference, and it is doing exactly what brains evolved to do when they encounter unexpected sensory information. It flags it as unusual. It pays attention. It creates a small but noticeable feeling of discomfort. This is where psychology deepens the effect significantly. Humans build identity partly through consistent sensory feedback. You recognize yourself in a mirror because the reflection aligns with your expectation. You know the face you see because you have grown accustomed to it. When you look in the mirror, you are confirming that your internal model of yourself matches external reality. But what happens when something disrupts that alignment? What happens when expectation breaks? When expectation breaks, the brain reacts with subtle alarm. It is a survival mechanism. Unexpected changes in sensory input might signal danger or threat. Hearing your recorded voice creates a tiny identity conflict. The mind briefly questions its own model of self. It says, "This is my voice, but this does not sound like my voice." What is happening? That moment of uncertainty, that brief cognitive dissonance, creates the unsettling feeling. There is also something called the self-enhancement bias, and this plays an important role in this phenomenon. Most people hold a slightly elevated perception of themselves. This is not arrogance or vanity. It is cognitive stability. We unconsciously adjust internal representations to maintain confidence and continuity. This is healthy. It allows us to function without constant self-doubt. Your internal voice benefits from this bias. It feels smoother, more controlled, more resonant. A recording strips away that internal smoothing and the psychological cushioning that comes with it. What you hear feels raw, exposed, unfiltered. The discomfort intensifies further because voices carry tremendous social meaning. Tone, pitch, pacing, and clarity influence how others perceive competence, warmth, authority, and trustworthiness. These judgments happen within milliseconds, often below conscious awareness. When you hear a recording of your voice, you are not just hearing sound waves. you are simultaneously evaluating social impact. Does this voice sound confident? Does it sound intelligent? Does it sound likable? Does it match who I believe I am? Does it match who I want others to think I am? That silent evaluation can trigger self-consciousness, even if others hear nothing unusual or problematic about your voice. You are comparing your internal narrative about yourself against the external version captured in the recording. You are comparing your self-image against potential social perception. That cognitive evaluation layer adds psychological complexity to what is already a biologically strange experience. Here is something that might be reassuring. Studies show that other people typically perceive your voice as more consistent than you do. They do not experience the internal versus external comparison. For them, your voice has always been the air-conducted version. The strangeness exists only inside your reference system. When someone listens to you speak, they are not thinking, "That sounds thin and unfamiliar." They are simply hearing a voice that they have learned to associate with you. They are not doing the comparison that troubles you because they never experienced your voice any other way. Your friends, family, and colleagues are hearing something much closer to what the recording captures than what you experience internally. When they tell you that you sound fine, that your voice sounds normal, they are speaking literal truth from their perspective. They are not trying to comfort you with a polite lie. They genuinely do not hear the strangeness you perceive. That gap between your experience and theirs is worth remembering. This phenomenon reveals something profound about perception itself. Much of what feels objective is actually filtered through private biological pathways. Much of what feels like direct access to reality is mediated through our unique physical structure. Your experience of yourself is partly shaped by physical properties like bone density, skull resonance, and the specific anatomy of your unique ear canal. These are not things you can change or control. These are biological givens that shape your perception. Identity is not just psychological. It is not just the story you tell yourself. Identity is anatomical. It is embedded in your physical structure. Who you believe you are is partially constructed from sensory feedback that is unique to you and unavailable to everyone else. That is a strange and profound truth about human consciousness. There is also an important learning component to this phenomenon. The more frequently you hear recordings of yourself, the less discomfort you feel. This is not because you get used to your voice being wrong. It is because your brain updates its internal model. Repetition allows the neural systems that process self-perception to integrate new information. The unfamiliar becomes integrated. The strange becomes normal. This adaptation shows how flexible self-perception really is. What once felt wrong and alien can become normal through exposure and repetition. This is exactly why actors, broadcasters, and professional singers train extensively with recordings of themselves. They are not trying to improve their voice in the sense of singing better notes. They are recalibrating their self-image to match external reality. Over time, the recorded voice becomes just another version of self rather than a threat to identity. The discomfort diminishes. The cognitive dissonance resolves. A new equilibrium forms, but the first encounter is always revealing. It is always honest. That first moment when you hear a recording of yourself exposes the gap between internal narrative and external perception. It reminds us that we do not fully experience ourselves the way others do. We are caught between two versions of ourselves, the internal version that we have privileged access to and the external version that everyone else knows. There is always a translation layer between intention and output, between thought and sound. Your brain generates an intention to speak. Your vocal cords vibrate. Sound waves travel through the air. Those sound waves reach another person's ear. Their brain interprets the sound and constructs a perception. That chain of translation introduces distortions and gaps. The version of you that you experience internally is not the same as the version that others perceive externally. This small, everyday mystery carries a much larger truth about human consciousness and self-awareness. Self-awareness is limited not because we lack intelligence or capability. Self-awareness is limited because we are physically embedded in our own sensory systems. You cannot hear yourself purely objectively because you are literally inside the instrument producing the sound. Your skull surrounds your ears. Your vocal cords are connected to your hearing. You are not positioned to have perfect self-knowledge because you are part of the system you are trying to understand. This is true for vision as well. You cannot see your own face without a mirror because your eyes are positioned in front of your head. You cannot see the back of your head without technological assistance. Your perspective is literally from inside your own body. This creates fundamental limits on direct self-perception. We can approximate self-knowledge through mirrors, recordings, and feedback from others, but perfect self-knowledge is neurologically impossible. And once you understand this, the discomfort changes meaning. It is no longer embarrassment or shame about how you sound. It is no longer insecurity. It is evidence. Evidence that perception is constructed. Evidence that identity is negotiated between biology and psychology and social feedback. Evidence that even something as simple and familiar as your voice contains hidden layers of reality that you never consciously chose and cannot fully access. Understanding the neuroscience removes the sting. You are not hearing proof that you are flawed or unlikable. You are hearing the world's version of you. You are hearing what everyone else has been hearing all along. You are hearing something objectively more accurate than your internal experience, even though it feels less real. The next time you hear a recording of yourself and feel that subtle resistance, that unsettling feeling, pause for a moment. You are not hearing a mistake. You are not hearing evidence of inadequacy. You are hearing the world's version of you, unfiltered by bone conduction and unsmoothed by self-enhancement bias. It may feel unfamiliar. It may feel strange. But it has always been real. It has always been the version that everyone else was hearing. You are finally, through technological mediation, hearing what the rest of the world has always known. And that, strangely, is something to be grateful for. It is a small window into a more objective version of yourself. It is a reminder that identity is more complex and less fixed than we typically assume. It is evidence that the self we experience internally is just one perspective among many, and all of those perspectives contain truth.